Welcome to Future Takes, a series where we ask people for their views on achieving a more reconciled island of Ireland. And today I'm joined by comedian Vittorio Angeloni. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too.
One of your sketches, I've been watching you.
Oh, no.
One of your recent sketches, you ask a great question. What's the deal with being Irish? And I wanted to start our conversation by putting your own question to you today.
That's
So,
funny.
Vittorio, what is the deal with being Irish?
I don't know. I got much more attached to it when I left Ireland, which I think happens to a lot of people. I used to kind of, as soon as I moved to London at 18, I suddenly had a real want to be Irish and hold on to that part of myself. But I don't know what it is to be Irish necessarily. It's something that sits nicely with me. I don't really have any worries calling my or identifying as Irish, whereas I find some identities a bit constrictive. I think being Irish feels quite open and positive generally.
You grew up in Belfast,
Yeah.
albeit posh Belfast, by your own admission. So what was the Belfast you grew up in like?
I just had a very nice upbringing in Belfast. And also I think my parents did a really good job of pushing me and my brothers into non-denominational extracurricular activities. So like, we did music, I played rugby, we were in the Scouts, and we also played Gaelic football and all these other things. So it wasn't, I think even though a lot of the real struggle and difficult stuff has passed, I think it's still very easy to grow up in Belfast and not meet someone from the other side of the divide.
And having had that inclusive, immersive experience growing up because your parents were acutely aware that that would benefit you, how do you look on that element of segregation that still exists in Northern Ireland?
I tend to divert any like thoughts on this to like my parents anytime it comes up, because on some level, as much as I think that's like a problem, that it doesn't feel like a fully integrated society, I don't know what it's the alternative to. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a lot of concessions were made and a lot of things were maybe lost for the sake of an end to like out and out violence at all times. So, but in and of itself, aside from what it's the alternative to, I don't think it's ideal. And these dividing lines are always just kind of nonsense, whether it's religion or race or sexuality or any of those things.
Do you think that comedy is a safe space for, discussions, conversations that some people might be afraid of or find uncomfortable?
Yeah, it can be. It can also be like the worst place to talk about it. But I think comedy can, I think all you can expect comedy to do is to take you to a place in your thoughts where you might be uncomfortable. And then if you can make the audience laugh in a place where they were uncomfortable, it's not that I'm furthering the conversation in the room at the show. It's that I have made them less scared of that place in their thoughts so that they can then think about it and talk about it later without as much fear. I think that's all comedy. I don't think comedy can ever actually solve the problem. It can just make things a little bit easier to talk about.
So what do you think it is that your generation has that they can add to these discussions that are happening around a shared island and the changing face of this island?
I guess a bit of clarity, to not be as bogged down and brought up in the kind of stark division of the whole thing, and a clarity to maybe make a decision or hold a viewpoint that is based on political ideas and personal ideas and community and what's the best thing for the people in the country, rather than, well, my family have always voted for these people, so I'll vote for these people, or, well, we have to vote for these people in case it's these people. And I think that's the way forward that's what I think in Northern Ireland, is to take a step back and go, what's the best for the people that live here, and how's the best way to make everybody comfortable with what's the best? Because everybody's scared. I think everybody in Northern Ireland is not everybody, but I think a generation of people in Northern Ireland are very scared that any move in any direction will just tilt things back to the way that they were. And it's been a hard-won peace and a long-lasting peace. And there's just a fear to move in any direction. But I think my generation is being a little bit braver in allowing it to be a complex issue and not just going, well, of course this, and everybody who thinks otherwise is an idiot.
For a more reconciled Ireland, what should we give?
Interesting question. I thought Patrick Keelty was very good about this when he was on Tommy Tiernan, about we probably shouldn't sing ooh, ah, up the rah in changing rooms. And I was certainly someone who thought that it's all just a bit of fun, like Tommy Tiernan said on that show. And I think it often is a bit of fun. But if you're a person who has had loved ones or family members murdered by that organisation, or someone purporting to be part of that organisation, however you want to spin it, it's probably quite difficult to see yourself as being politically aligned with them.
So what could we gain?
I think Ireland's very exciting culturally now. And I think the North is a huge part of that. I think the North's really exciting. I think it's because it's a kind of traumatized place and a place that doesn't let things bubble under the surface, that says what's going on and is very, cuts to the core of stuff. I think that's really important culturally. And I think that kind of mixing could make a lot of cool stuff happen.
So finally today, Vittorio, what would you say to the leaders, the decision makers, the powers that be going forward in order to have a more reconciled Ireland? How should they be thinking? What should they be doing?
Maybe it's important to just let go of any preconception of what you think it's going to look like, and to start from a real base of if we were building a country of these people on this island, or an island of these people, even if it's still divided, what would be the best way for this to represent everyone and cater to everyone, and forget any idea of what it already is almost.